My dad sold all our belongings and jewelry and gave our room to my brother while my 6-year-old was in the hospital fighting after a bad accident. "Your rent is overdue," my mom said casually. I didn't cry. I took action. Just 1 month later, when they saw us again, their faces went completely pale, and they were shaking. "I'm Angela. We got discharged on a Thursday afternoon that felt all wrong. Thursdays are for groceries and laundry and losing track of time, not for walking out of a hospital in Kansas City with your kids still looking fragile." Addison clutched her stuffed bunny tight in one arm and held my hand with the other like she was afraid I'd let go. She was quieter than usual, checking my face every few seconds the way kids do when the world has just proven it can break. "Are we going home now?" she asked at the automatic doors. "We're going home," I told her, keeping my voice steady because she was watching me like I was the only reliable thing left. In the car, she stared out the window, then back at me. "My bunny is still there, right?" "Yeah, Bunny's still there." We shared a room at my parents' house in the suburbs, but Addison had her own little bed, her nightlight, her books. I had the narrow one on the other side and whatever drawer space was left. She leaned her head back. "I want my blanket." I knew it wasn't just the blanket. When we pulled up, I unbuckled her slowly. The front door opened before I could even get the key in. My dad stood there with a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes, my mom right behind him. Addison's face lit up a little, careful. "Hi." "Hi, sweetie," my mom said, touching her head lightly. I shifted the hospital bag and started toward the stairs. My mom's hand landed on my arm, gentle but firm. Before I could move, she said softly, "Do you have somewhere to stay tonight?" I stopped. "We live here." My mom nodded like that was reasonable. "And about that, your rent is overdue." I felt Addison's fingers tighten around the bunny. We went upstairs anyway. The door to our room was open. My brother's things were everywhere. His son's toys scattered on Addison's bed. I opened the dresser. Empty. My jewelry box on the shelf gone. My dad cleared his throat behind us. "I just borrowed some of it temporarily." Addison looked up at me, confused. I didn't ask questions. I didn't raise my voice. I just took Addison's jacket from the hook, helped her into it, and walked us out. We left that afternoon and never went back. If you were in my shoes right that moment, what would you have done? Let me know in the comments. We left that house without looking back. The car rolling through the familiar suburban streets. Addison sat quietly in the back seat, hugging her stuffed bunny close to her chest, eyes fixed on the window as if trying to make sense of what had just happened. I kept my hands steady on the wheel, but my mind was reeling. The neighborhoods looked exactly the same as always. The rows of similar brick houses, the trimmed hedges, the kids' bikes left on driveways, but everything felt shifted now. As we passed certain spots, memories surfaced one by one, not in a rush, but clear, and pointed the kind that had been buried under daily life until this moment forced them up. The first came when we drove by the neighborhood park with the old swing set. I must have been 10, Sean around 8. It was a rainy afternoon, and we were stuck inside, running around the living room like kids do when they're bored. Sean darted past the side table and knocked over Mom's prized vase, the blue one she'd picked up on a rare vacation with Dad before we were born. It hit the floor and broke into pieces. Sean froze for a second, then burst into tears, loud and dramatic, rubbing his eyes. Dad came in from the kitchen, saw the mess, and went straight to Sean, pulling him into a hug. "Hey, it's all right, son. Things break. No big deal." He rubbed Sean's back until the crying stopped. Then Dad looked at me, standing there with my hands clasped. "Angela, you're the big sister. You know better than to let him run wild like that. You need to look out for him more. Let the younger one have some space." I nodded, picked up the larger pieces carefully so I wouldn't cut myself, and carried them to the trash while Sean got a cookie to feel better. That day stuck because it wasn't the last time Sean got the comfort I got the lesson in responsibility. Fast forward to when I was 15, sophomore year in high school. I'd been drawing for years, filling notebooks with sketches, and the school offered an advanced art elective with supplies and a real instructor. It cost extra, but I thought it was worth asking. At dinner one night with everyone at the table, I brought it up casually. Dad, the art class sign-up is due next week. It's not too much, but do you think we could cover it? He paused with his fork halfway to his mouth, then set it down. Angela, you're old enough to handle your own interests now. If you want it that bad, save up from babysitting or something. We have bills, and Sean's got his football gear coming up. We can't stretch for every hobby. Sean glanced up but stayed quiet, focusing on his food. A couple months later, when Sean needed new shoulder pads and a better helmet for the team stuff that added up quick, Dad took him shopping that weekend and paid without blinking. Gotta invest in your future out there on the field, he told Sean proudly. I dropped the art class idea, took more babysitting gigs, and bought my own supplies when I could. The gap wasn't huge on its own, but it added to the pile. Then there was the time after my divorce about 3 years back. Everything fell apart fast: the marriage, the finances, the stability. Addison was barely walking, and I had no savings buffer. Coming back to my parents' house felt like failure, but I had no choice. I asked if we could stay in the smaller room until I found work and a place. They said yes, but laid out rules right away. It's fine for now, but you'll contribute monthly fair rent since you're using space and utilities. Plus, pitching in extra running errands, cleaning after dinner, watching Hunter when Sean dropped him off unexpectedly. It made sense on paper, but when Sean's turn came last year, his marriage ending, suddenly him showing up stressed with Hunter in tow, things moved differently. Dad and Mom rearranged the house that same week, giving Sean the larger bedroom with the attached bath, the one they'd kept as a guest room. You two need room to breathe, Dad said, helping carry boxes in. No mention of contributions. When Sean mentioned struggling with rent on his apartment, Mom slipped him cash for the deposit to break the lease. Hunter got new bedding toys to make it feel like home. Dad started planning around Hunter's football schedule, practices, games, the upcoming travel team tryouts that required fees and gear. This kid's got real talent, Dad would say at family dinners, showing videos on his phone. Addison sat there with her coloring book, unnoticed in the excitement. I tightened my grip on the steering wheel as we turned onto another familiar road. Those incidents weren't dramatic fights or big declarations. They were quiet choices repeated over time that drew the line clear. Sean in his life got priority, flexibility, support. Mine came with expectations, conditions, the assumption I'd manage alone. We passed the corner store where I'd bought cheap sketch pads with earned money, the field where Sean had his first games with Dad cheering loudest, the sidewalk I'd walked, pushing Addison's stroller after long shifts. Addison stirred again, her voice small from the back. Mommy, where are we going exactly? I'm figuring it out, honey, I answered, keeping my tone even. She accepted that, pressing her bunny closer. The light-faded street lamps flickering on one by one. These suburbs had raised me, held my adulthood struggles, and now rejected us without ceremony. Driving without a map, the weight of it all settled in fully. We drove through those familiar streets, and I realized I'd never really had a home. I had slowed the car to a crawl on a quiet side street, pulling over under a row of maple trees that lined the curb. My hand shook as I held the phone, thumb hovering over the old contact I'd never deleted. Gladys, my dad's mom. The number had been in my phone since high school, back when she still lived closer, and I'd call sometimes just to hear her stories. Memories of her came flooding in, stronger, now sharper than the ones about Dad and Mom. She was the one who made everything feel safer when I was little. After school, if Dad was in one of his moods, or Sean had gotten all the attention again, I'd sneak over to her room at the back of the house. She'd be folding laundry or reading one of her old paperbacks, and she'd look up with that soft smile. Come here, Angie girl, she'd say, opening her arms. I'd climb onto the bed next to her, and she'd hug me tight, smelling like vanilla from whatever she'd baked that day. Cookies, banana bread, whatever was simple and warm. She'd let me talk if I wanted or just sit quiet, stroking my hair. No lectures about being the bigger person. No reminders to help more around the house. She was the only one who ever asked about my drawings without making it feel like an afterthought. I'd show her sketches from school, and her eyes would light up. "That's beautiful, honey. You've got real talent." She'd pin them on her little bulletin board right next to family photos where Sean always seemed to take center stage. But things changed after her accident. I was in college by then, coming home less. Gladys had worked at the same factory for decades assembling parts on the line. One shift a machine malfunctioned and her hip got crushed. Doctors fixed what they could, but she couldn't stand for long hours anymore. No more factory job. No more steady paycheck. At first, Dad and Mom let her stay in that back room. She tried to contribute cooking meals, watching Hunter when he was a toddler, small things to feel useful. But as months turned into years, the tone shifted. I'd hear snippets on visits home. "She's not pulling her weight anymore. We can't keep supporting everyone." Dad started complaining about bills, how Gladys's medical costs added up even with insurance. They moved her things bit by bit. First to a smaller apartment nearby paid for by Dad but with comments about how it was temporary. Then farther out when rents rose. "It's quieter for her," Mom would say. The visits stopped being regular. Phone calls dwindled. By the time Addison was born, Gladys was in her little house on the other side of the Kansas City suburbs, and family gatherings didn't include her anymore. The last time I'd seen her was 2 Christmases ago, when I drove over alone with Addison as a baby. Gladys had cried holding her great-granddaughter, saying how much she looked like me at that age. "Don't let them make you feel small, Angie," she'd whispered when we left. "You're worth just as much." I hadn't called since. Guilt twisted in my stomach now. How many years had it been? But the number was still there, unchanged. Addison had dozed off in the back, her head tilted against the car seat, bunny tucked under her chin. The street was empty, dusk settling in. I could keep driving, find a motel, figure something out tomorrow. But the thought of another night in limbo with my little girl waking up, confused again, made my chest tight. My thumb finally pressed call. It rang once, twice. "Hello?" Her voice came through clear, warm, a little raspy from age, but unmistakable. "Grandma, it's Angela." A short pause, not surprise, more like recognition. "Angie. My Angie girl. No questions about why now. No mention of the years silent." We need a place tonight. Addison and me. Things happened." Another pause, softer. "You come on over, sweetheart. I'm home. Lights still on for you?" I swallowed hard. "You sure it's late?" "And I'm sure. Drive safe. I'll put water on for tea." She gave the address, though. I remembered the way, and we hung up. I sat there a minute, phone in my lap, tears threatening but not falling. Then I started the car again, heading toward the highway that skirted the city. The drive took about an hour through darkening suburbs into quieter areas where houses sat farther apart. Gladys's place was a small ranch-style home, neat but modest, with a single porch light glowing as promised. I parked in the driveway, gently woke Addison. "We're here, sweetie. This is Grandma Gladys's house." She rubbed her eyes, confused but trusting, clutching her bunny as we walked up the path. The door opened before I knocked. Gladys stood there in a cardigan and slippers, hair white now, but eyes the same kind, blue. She looked older, thinner, but steady. Her gaze went straight to Addison first, taking in the pale face, the hospital bracelet still on the tiny wrist. Without a word, she crouched down as best she could with her bad hip and opened her arms. Addison hesitated, then stepped forward into the hug, letting Gladys hold her close, rocking slightly. Only then did Gladys look up at me, eyes misty, and reach out one arm. I joined them, the 3 of us, on the porch for a long moment. "Come inside," she said finally, voice thick. "It's getting chilly." She led us in, hand on Addison's shoulder, flipping on soft lamps that made the living room feel cozy despite its simplicity. A quilt on the couch, photos on the walls, some old ones, including me as a kid, None recent with the rest of the family. Gladys didn't push for details. She got Addison settled on the couch with a pillow and blanket, brought juice in a plastic cup with a straw. You rest easy now, little one. To me, quieter. There's soup if you're hungry. Or just sit. I nodded, sinking into an armchair, exhaustion hitting fully. She sat across from me, hands folded, waiting if I wanted to talk, but not demanding. The house smelled faintly of cinnamon, like she'd baked recently. It felt safe in a way I hadn't in years. Addison's eyes closed again, almost immediately breathing even. Gladys watched her a while, then turned to me with that same understanding look she'd always had. Whatever came next, we weren't alone tonight. Addison was sleeping soundly on the sofa, and I stayed behind with Grandma Gladys at the small kitchen table. The kitchen light was low, just the bulb over the table casting a warm circle on the worn linoleum. Gladys had made tea chamomile from a tin she'd kept forever, and set a mug in front of me without asking if I wanted it. Steam curled up between us. Addison was curled under the quilt on the couch in the next room, her breathing steady for the first time since the accident. I wrapped my hands around the mug, feeling the heat, but not really drinking. My mind kept spinning on tomorrow and the day after. No job lined up yet after taking time off for the hospital stay. Savings almost gone from medical bills. No room to go back to. The weight of it pressed hard. Gladys watched me quietly, patient like always. She didn't fill the silence with questions. "How have you been, Grandma?" I finally asked, voice quieter than I meant. "Really been?" She leaned back in her chair, hands folded over her lap. "Oh, I manage. The house is paid off. Small pension comes in. Garden keeps me busy in summer. Neighbors check on me now and then." She said it plain, no self-pity. But I heard what wasn't said, the loneliness in the edges. "It's been too long since I visited," I said. "I'm sorry." She waved it off gently. "Life gets full, I know that." I nodded, staring into the tea. "Things changed a lot after your accident, didn't they?" Her expression softened, a flicker of old hurt crossing her face before she smoothed it away. "They did. Your dad and Linda were good at first, helped with doctor visits, made sure I had what I needed. But once it was clear I couldn't go back to work, couldn't chip in like before, well, things got tighter. Conversations about money more often. Then suggestions about moving to something smaller, cheaper. Easier for everyone, they said." She paused, sipping her own tea. I understood the practical side, but it still stung being moved out like an extra piece of furniture. Calls stopped coming regular. Holidays got skipped. I didn't push. Figured they had their reasons. I felt anger rise on her behalf, mixed with my own fresh hurt. Dad treating his own mother that way after all she'd done, raising him alone for years after Grandpa passed, working double shifts to keep the house going. "They never should have done that to you," I said. Gladys shrugged lightly. "Family makes choices. Sometimes they're not kind ones." The quiet stretched again. I thought about Addison's future school clothes. Everything basic that suddenly felt uncertain. No safety net left with my parents. Starting over from nothing terrified me more than I wanted to admit. Gladys noticed my gaze drift to the living room doorway where Addison slept. "She's a sweet one," she said softly. "Looks just like you at that age, strong even when she's tired." I managed a small smile. "She's been through too much already." Gladys nodded, then glanced toward a cabinet in the corner. "You know your grandpa, he passed long before you really remember him, was always planning ahead. Quiet about it, but thoughtful. Before he died, he told me once, 'If things ever get hard for the kids or grandkids, there's a box in the closet with some old papers. Might help someday.'" I never looked close. Figured it was just insurance stuff or deeds. She stood slowly, favoring her good side, and walked to the hall closet. Pulled down a cardboard box from the top shelf, dusty but intact, taped shut, like it hadn't been touched in decades. "I kept it all these years," she said, setting it on the table between us. "Never had reason to open it. But maybe now. She didn't push, just sat back down and let it sit there. My heart beat faster. Part of me wanted to ignore it, too tired for more disappointment tonight. But the bigger part, the one desperate for any lifeline for Addison, couldn't let it go. "Do you mind if I look?" I asked. "Go ahead, Angie, it's family." I pulled the box closer, carefully cut the old tape with a butter knife from the counter. Inside were folders yellowed with age, birth certificates, house papers from when they bought this place, some savings bonds long matured. I went through them methodically, one by one, under the kitchen light. Insurance policies expired, tax records from the 80s, then a thinner envelope labeled in Grandpa's neat handwriting, "Investments." My fingers paused. I opened it slowly. Certificates. Stock certificates. From a company called Microsoft, purchased in 1986. Small amount then, just a few $100s from what looked like a bonus Grandpa got that year. I knew enough to recognize the name, but not the details. Split after split over decades, those original shares would have multiplied many times. I set the papers down carefully, hands trembling slightly. Gladys watched, curious but calm. "Something useful." "Maybe," I whispered. "I need to check, but maybe more than useful." She didn't press for more, just reached over and patted my hand. "Whatever it is, we'll figure it morning light." I kept sorting through the rest that night, long after she went to bed, reading every line, making notes on my phone, heart racing with a mix of hope and fear that this could actually change things. The box held more than dust and memories. It held possibility. 3 weeks after the first call to the broker, all the paperwork was finally done, and we picked up the keys to the new house. Those 3 weeks dragged in ways I hadn't expected, full of waiting that tested every bit of patience I had left. Right after that night with the box, I took high-resolution photos of each certificate and uploaded them to a secure folder. Then I spent hours researching what physical stock certificates from the 80s meant in today's world. The potential value hit me hard. Grandpa's modest purchase in Microsoft back in 1986 had gone through multiple splits, turning a small investment into something substantial. But seeing numbers on a screen wasn't money in the bank. I searched for experts and found Mr. Harlan, a financial attorney specializing in estate and legacy assets, with good reviews from people in similar situations. I called his office the next morning from Gladys's kitchen phone, explaining as clearly as I could without sounding desperate. He asked me to email the photos first. When he called back an hour later, his voice carried real surprise. "These are legitimate pre-IPO era certificates, physical ones. That's uncommon now. Most were dematerialized years ago." He confirmed they appeared authentic but cautioned immediately. "Transferring to modern form and selling will involve steps. We'll need to prove chain of title through your grandfather's estate, even if it was informal. Affidavits from your grandmother, death certificate, possibly court filing for confirmation." He laid out the timeline, several weeks at minimum for verification alone. Brokerages had tightened rules after fraud cases. "Expect delays," he said. "And fees, legal transfer taxes on gains." Gladys listened from her chair, sipping coffee, unfazed. "Whatever it takes, Angie, no rush." I retained him that day. First documents, Gladys providing sworn statement as surviving spouse, copies of marriage license, Grandpa's will summary. Then the chosen brokerage, large national firm Harlan recommended, opened a provisional account, but required originals shipped overnight, insured. More forms, beneficiary designations, tax ID setup, anti-money laundering checks. Every day brought new emails. Additional proof requested, old bank statements if possible, though we had none. Harlan handled most, but I scanned what little family records Gladys kept. Nights were hardest. Addison slept better in her temporary room at Gladys's, but I'd lie awake calculating worst cases. What if authentication failed? What if value after taxes wasn't enough? Job applications sat unsent, focus scattered. Gladys kept things grounded. Mornings with pancakes, afternoons walking Addison to the nearby park. She'd tell stories about Grandpa's quiet optimism, how he'd clip articles about tech companies even when money was tight. Midweek, too, Harlan updated depository, accepted scans for preliminary review, but needed physical inspection at their facility. Another insured shipment tracking obsessively. Broker finally confirmed electronic registration near week 3. Value locked in life-changing though, less after conservative holdback for taxes. Harlan's advice firm sell only portion needed. Keep majority invested diversely. This is generational. We liquidated just enough for down payment reserves basics. House search focused practical same school district for Addison room for Gladys, no steep stairs. Realtor showed several. One stood out, updated 4-bedroom with open kitchen, fenced yard, quiet cul-de-sac still in Kansas City suburbs. Offer went in strong, accepted quickly. Inspection clean, appraisal solid. Closing scheduled exactly 3 weeks from broker contact. Title office small process smooth with wired funds. Keys heavy in my hand as we drove over first time. Empty but full of light fresh paint smell welcoming. Gladys chose main level suite. Addison dashed upstairs picking bedroom with bay window for her toys. Moving simple rented van stored items retrieved new beds delivered. No excess buying yet, priorities first. Routines formed fast. Gladys gardening herbs in back, Addison helping water. Evenings on patio, fireflies appearing as days warmed. Addison's laughter returned, genuine, she'd chase bubbles. Gladys blew hug her tight without prompting. Gladys became center reading books, teaching simple recipes, offering steady presence I'd craved. I found moments pausing in doorway watching them, gratitude sinking deeper. This place ours outright, no expectations hanging over. Remaining assets managed conservatively, growing silently for future security, education, health, whatever ahead. Stability felt real, earned through patience. For first time in years, plans looked forward, not just survival. One Saturday afternoon, I was pushing my cart through Costco when I heard a familiar voice calling my name from behind. I stopped mid-reach for a pack of paper towels, the fluorescent lights suddenly feeling too bright. The voice was unmistakable, Dad's, with that mix of surprise and forced cheer. I turned slowly, cart in front of me like a shield. There they were, Dad, Mom, and Sean clustered around their own overflowing cart in the middle of the wide aisle. Bulk toilet paper, giant detergent bottles, the usual weekend haul. Hunter wasn't there, probably at practice. Dad's gaze flicked first to my cart filled with normal things, fresh vegetables, yogurt packs for Addison, a new backpack for school starting soon. Then his eyes shifted past me to the front windows, catching the shine of the new SUV in the lot. Angela, Mom said, stepping forward with a smile that didn't quite fit. What a coincidence running into you here. Sean stayed a half step back, arms folded over his chest, scanning me up and down as if looking for clues. Yeah, I said evenly. Just picking up a few things. Dad nodded toward the parking area. That your vehicle out there looks brand new. I held his stare without answering immediately. Mom filled the quiet tone light but edged with curiosity. Word gets around in the family, you know. People mentioning you got a new place. Nicer neighborhood, I hear. Must feel good after everything. She left the question hanging. How exactly? It's home. I replied. Addison's settling in well. Sean's turn now. He leaned on their cart handle, casual but direct. Home meaning you own it. No rent. Come on, how'd that happen so quick? Dad glanced at him but didn't interrupt, waiting for my response. Mom added smoothly. We're happy for you, really. Big changes like that, it's exciting. But family's family. If fortune smiled on you, sharing a bit wouldn't hurt anyone. The implication clear, whatever I had part belonged to them by default. I felt my pulse quicken but kept my voice level. We're managing. Dad's expression shifted, brows drawing together. Managing, Angela. We've always been there when you needed. Roof over your head help with the kid. Now things turn around and it's radio silence. Sean jumped in less subtle. Look, Hunter's season is ramping up. Travel tournaments aren't cheap, entry fees, uniforms, the whole deal. A little from you now would go far. Family helps family, right? His words carried that familiar assumption, the one where his needs came first. Mom nodded support. No one's saying hand over everything, just reasonable. Blood's thicker than water. Shoppers navigated around us, carts squeaking past, oblivious to the tension building in our little circle. I gripped my handle tighter. I appreciate the concern, but we're good. Dad's face reddened slightly. Good, after we took you in, covered for you? Mom touched his arm, softening. Ronald, we're just saying it's right to think of everyone, especially the boy. Sean pressed harder. Yeah, especially Hunter. Kid's got potential. You of all people know how expenses pile up raising one alone. The greed shone through now, no more polite veil. I opened my mouth when a familiar figure appeared beside me, Gladys, basket of produce in hand. She'd been in the next aisle overpicking bananas. Her timing, perfect, expression composed but firm. She looked at Dad first, then Mom, finally Sean, taking them in without flinching. You all made your positions clear long ago, she said quietly but with steel underneath. Now it's time to let it be. Go on home. The words landed heavy in the noisy store. Dad started to reply, mouth opening. Mom, this is between... Gladys cut him off, calm. No, it's not. You've chosen. Respect that. Mom's cheeks flushed deeper. Sean shifted weight, looking away. No one pushed further. The aisle bustle continued, beeps from checkouts, announcements overhead. Dad muttered something low about talking later, but they turned their cart heading toward the registers without looking back. Gladys placed her items in my cart gently. Let's finish up, Angie. Ice cream's melting. I nodded, throat thick, and we moved on together. In the parking lot later, loading groceries into the SUV, I scanned the rows. Their older van pulled out slowly, no wave, no glance. That encounter crystallized everything, no more pretending at civility. The drive home felt lighter despite it all. The lawyer's letter from them arrived just 2 weeks after the encounter at Costco. The letter showed up in the mailbox on an ordinary weekday morning, heavy envelope with a downtown law firm's return address. I brought it inside, set it on the counter while helping Addison with breakfast. Gladys was out front tending her roses. I slid it open, scanned the first page, and felt my stomach sink. Formal complaint: Ronald and Linda suing Gladys for elder financial abuse, undue influence, breach of fiduciary duty. Allegations that she lacked mental capacity, that I'd coerced her into claiming the stocks as her sole property, that the assets were intended for the entire family. Demand for full accounting transfer of funds, even appointment of a guardian. I read it twice, hands steady, but anger building cold. They were attacking their own mother, Gladys, sharp as ever to claw at money they'd only learned about because of a new house and car. Gladys came in from the yard, gloves dusty, and saw my face. I handed her the papers without a word. She read slowly, glasses perched low, then set them down. Predictable, she said quietly. Fear makes people foolish. We called Harlan that afternoon. He reviewed the scanned filing by evening. Classic grab when inheritance surfaces unexpectedly, he explained. But their case is thin, no medical evidence of incapacity, clear documentation. The stocks were your grandfather's separate property, gifted solely to Gladys. He moved fast motion to dismiss, filed within days, supported by Gladys's recent medical exam, confirming full competency. Independent doctor interviewed her at home, noted her independent living, clear, recall sound decisions. Discovery requests came from their side, bank statements, emails, even old holiday cards for pattern of influence. Harlan limited scope, protected privacy. Gladys's deposition happened in Harlan's office, recorded but calm. She answered every question directly, box untouched for years. No family interest shown until recent changes decision to help me and Addison her own. Dad and Mom's depositions exposed weaknesses, admissions they hadn't known about the stocks before, vague claims of confusion without proof. Judge reviewed motions, ruled summary judgment in our favor less than 8 weeks in. No trial needed. Case dismissed with prejudice. Noted frivolous elements, awarded partial attorney fees against them. The bill hit hard for Dad and Mom, tens of thousands in legal costs, nothing gained. I didn't let it end there. Harlan filed our countersuit conversion of personal property. Detailed list Addison's electronics and toys, sold my jewelry from the dresser. Values based on comparable sales photos as evidence, timeline tied to hospital records proving we hadn't abandoned anything. Their attorney pushed back initially claims of unpaid rent offsetting or items donated for family needs. But dates didn't align. Sales occurred while we were absent due to medical emergency. Mediation failed, they offered token amount. Went to small claims level for efficiency. Hearing brief. Judge reviewed evidence, ruled straightforward wrongful taking and sale. Ordered restitution, exact amount realized from those items, no more, no less. Check arrived 4 months later, deposited without ceremony. Money wasn't the point. Accountability was. News traveled quietly but steadily through the Kansas City suburban circles. Extended family, cousins, aunts who'd stayed peripheral stopped reaching out. Holiday invites dried up. Group texts went silent when the topic arose. Local social ties frayed. Dad's golf group chats excluded him from tea times. Mom's neighborhood coffee meetups shifted venues or times. Polite nods in grocery stores, but no lingering conversations. Sean bore the brunt practically. Hunter's competitive football circuit demanded commitments, registration fees, travel costs, new equipment yearly. Without grandparents' usual supplements, Sean juggled but fell short. Hunter missed qualifier tournaments, sat benches, more opportunities narrowed. Their household budget tightened, visibly delayed car maintenance, fewer outings, whispers about credit card balances. No public scandal, just gradual erosion of standing. People remembered the core facts: belongings sold during a child's hospital stay, then lawsuit against elderly mother over unexpected assets. Occasional attempts surfaced, a generic birthday card for Addison returned undeliverable. One voicemail from Mom about moving past misunderstandings, deleted unheard. I changed our numbers soon after, fresh start, clean. Gladys refused bitterness. Lessons come expensive sometimes. She'd say, then ask about dinner plans. Focus shifted fully forward. School year smooth for Addison, friends over regularly. Gladys's garden flourished, roses blooming vibrant. One warm Saturday, Addison decided on her project, planting the first tree in our front yard, a small dogwood from the nursery, roots wrapped carefully. She dug the hole with her little shovel, soil crumbling dark. Gladys supervised from a lawn chair, offering tips on depth. I held the trunk steady while Addison packed earth around, padding firm. She stepped back, hands, dirty face beaming. It's ours forever now? Gladys smiled wide. Roots take time, but they hold strong. No visitors from the old address ever appeared again.